Hey, this is Stephen Cognetti, writer-director of the Hell House LLC franchise, and you are listening to the Don't Go Out There podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Podcast. Just want to thank all our fans and listeners. We really appreciate it. Super excited for this upcoming interview. We are joined today by another big name of the business, known mostly for writing and directing the very popular Hell House LLC franchise. We are very excited to have on Mr. Stephen Cognetti. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today, sir?
Excellent. Thanks for having me on, guys.
It's our pleasure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Stephen, again, thank you so much for coming on. Listen, we usually like to kick off all of our interviews by just asking, what is it that got you into this business? Was directing and writing, always your niche or?
Yeah, I have. I think ever since I was a little kid, wanted to make movies. So always wanted to be a director. So when I played toys as a little kid, I was playing with them, envisioning them as props in my movie, and always seeing it from that aspect. So like GI Joes was a big fan. I would love playing with GI Joes, but I would pretend I was making a movie with my GI Joes more so than just playing with them. So for me, I'm lucky enough to it's not everyone gets to do what they've always wanted to do since they're little kids. So for me, I'm very fortunate that I've been able to. So and I just went to film school. Temple University in Philadelphia, and that was a real awakening moment of like it is a very tough industry. You just can't just show up and be like, "Hey, I'm going to be a filmmaker. Where's my camera?" It's very tough to get into. Make something, get it noticed. So it's a very tough process.
Right. So just kind of talk to me a little bit about the found footage genre, as a whole. If I'm not mistaken, you've made comments about shooting a found footage movie being a blessing and a curse, and
Yeah.
from everything from the budget, camera angles, everything in between. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So yeah, because we're very indie, the Hell House movies, don't have a big budget. So when I say blessing and a curse, it works to our advantage that we are able to shoot on a budget, a found footage movie. But the curse part is that I don't really then get to have the coverage I want that I would want from a traditional narrative film, where I get to approach a scare and say, "Hey, I want to shoot this from, angle 1 through 6."
Right.
Cameras A, B, C, and D, and on. So I'm locked into one position for each scare. And sometimes that works out great, because then you get to have fun being creative by just how is this going to be shot from one angle, from a first person perspective, and so that works out sometimes. And I think that it's good because it makes it feel real. I think that that's also the authenticity of found footage. I think adds a lot to any scare because it does look like, oh, that could be anybody's home movie, and so it feels more real. And so I love it for that. I love it for being able to cover 10 to 12 pages a day because we don't have coverage. So our shoot times are anywhere from probably like 12 days. I think that's what the original Hell House was, about 12 days shooting. So we're able to get all 93, 94 pages of script in those 12 days. I think we spent like 10 days at the Abaddon Hotel, and then 2 days shooting elsewhere, like pick up interviews around town to fill in the documentary side of the movie. So it's for both. But there's so many times where I'm approaching a scare and I'd be like, I would love the reverse angle of this, but I can't do it because I'm locked into this one camera position. So
Right. I get that. I get that. Speaking, kind of staying on the found footage genre, the Blair Witch Project obviously seems to be kind of the grandfather of found footage. Really, I
yeah.
mean, what is it that made you decide to go that found footage route for the Hell House series? Because if I'm not mistaken, it was originally planned for the traditional route, right?
It was, and I quickly realized that I don't have the money to raise for that.
Oh,
But I think I had an epiphany at one point that I think I just it just organically grew that way, anyways, to go into this fake documentary style. And I kind of like that angle, anyways. And so it was a part budgetary thing, but it was mostly I like that style of filmmaking for this story, anyways, because fake documentary is just so much fun. It's and I watched Lake Mungo a few years before I jumped into Hell House, and I just thought like they pulled off a documentary horror style so well. It made it so believable, and it was scary, more scary because of that. So And I also always loved like Dateline, like 48-hour mysteries, murder mystery
Oh,
shows. So I kind of just wanted to go that route and then, but bring it in more paranormal. And I thought that was like a good angle for this film. It just made it more interesting than trying to make a traditional route. I just didn't think that fit for this particular film.
So you talked about some of the I guess disadvantages to the found footage as far as like being pigeonholed into a certain camera angle for a scare or something. What would you
Yeah.
say is the toughest scene for you to shoot? And this could be not just Hell House LLC, but like what would you say is the most difficult scene in any of your films that you can remember?
Um, So I'll go with what has been released because I do have another film that's traditional narrative, not found footage, that's going to be released hopefully sometime in 24. But I was sticking to the found footage films that people know of already. Uh, a few come to mind, but I think the opening of the original film with the chaos and the tour goers, I think that just was challenging because there's just so many moving pieces on that, so many extras. We had to coordinate everything with the fire trucks and the ambulances, everything rolling up at the same time.
right.
That was just we had this film contained people inside a house that was easier because we have our set actors and we have all the honk gags, but when you bring in a scene that just has so many pieces to it, um, things just get a little bit more complicated. But we had so many good people working on the film, organizing everybody. The fire department was so they were just like so like hey willing to just hang out and say sure we'll do another take, and to get them to do multiple takes, pull the truck all the way down the road and to come down on our signal. We had air horns as signals, and when I was running out of the hotel with the camera, that the air horn would go off, and that's when they knew to pull it. So there's that perfect meetup spot when I got to the gates. So for all that, I think for the logistics, that was the hardest scene.
Right.
But one other scene comes to mind, and that was in Hell House 3, is when Russell introduces Jessica to, or no, I'm sorry, Vanessa to the to all the crew that's in Insomnia, and there's this. I like the scene because I think it was funny, and I love all those actors. They're so funny and so good at what they did. But there were so many different angles to cover that from because they all had their own cameras. And so we're trying to get this whole interaction to happen with all these groups of people, and they're all talking together, and there's different cameras zooming around. That was just challenging in trying to coordinate that and choreograph that. But it was a lot of fun in post production to put that together. And I love those actors in Hell House 3 so much because they were all just like comedic in their own way. So I just had a lot of fun with that scene and cutting it together. But just like when we were blocking it and rehearsing it, it was just like there's probably 15 of us in this small dining room of the Abaddon Hotel, and just everyone had lines and it was bouncing all around, and to try to figure out which camera should be going where, and when that was a little challenging, but it came out well, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Steven, I'm looking forward to hearing this story. That clown has become the face of the Hell House franchise, and I've heard in other interviews you've done about the cluster, or dare I say, circus,
Hey,
of a situation that led to actually getting that mask. Would you mind sharing with our audience and my fellow co-host how you actually got that clown mask and how it came to fruition?
Yeah. So I knew going into it that I wanted the clown, the main Hell House clown in the original film, that clown mask, just to be very minimalist. Not much, I think clowns aren't scary when you start getting into the bushy hair, the nose. Then it's just too much. And everything related to Hell House is subtlety. Subtlety is everything, and less is more, I believe. And so I wanted that those principles apply to the mask as well. So just like kind of like a pale face with not much going on. So I had an artist make some basic concept art of what I was looking for. We used that. I sent that to a mask maker. The mask maker said, "Don't worry, I'll get it to you by the time you're shooting." Never did, and that never happened. And it was like a day away from shooting. I'm like, "Hey, where's this mask?" And he gave me pretty much the dog ate my homework. He was like, "My studio had a flood." And so I'm like, okay, we're a day away from shooting. We don't even have a mask yet. But so I told Angie, I'm like, I need something. Angie, who runs the Haunt at the Waldorf, and she works as our production designer on the original. And so she actually found something close enough to what I was looking for. It was blank enough, a blank enough of canvas of a mask that we could just then our makeup artist can add the blood and do other things to it to match my concept art. So I think that worked out better because that mask, it was an old mask that she pulled out that she hadn't used. It already had some weathering to it, some age to it. So I think that might have worked out better. Actually, if this guy had shipped me the mask, it might have the silicone might have been too fresh and new that I think it might have lost a little bit than what we got when we just brushed off an old dirty mask that she had as a backup. So our backup plan worked, and that's how we got to. It was still kind of basically the principle, the concept of what I originally came up with, but just not exactly. It wasn't made specific for the film. We didn't have anything custom made for the film until Carmichael Manor, and that's when we worked with these amazing mask makers, these professionals out of Ohio, and they took some basic concepts I just made up in Photoshop, and it's very rudimentary stuff, and they blew me away with what they sent back to me for these two new clowns. And I was like, those are creepy. I love it. Thank you so much. And they sent me, and they remade the original mask too. So and for story wise, I needed the mask aged differently. So I needed a mask that was looked new, looked from the 80s, and also weathered to present time too. So they sent me all three masks, three different ages. Back in the 60s, 80s, and then present, like aged accordingly as it went on. So it was awesome. They were great to work with.
Awesome. So you mentioned Carmichael Manor. Let's talk a little bit about Origins. So it's the fourth film in the franchise, which is Hell House LLC Origins Carmichael Manor. Can you talk about your thought process in moving away from the hotel but still tying it in? Was that always your intention after you burned it down in the third one? Spoiler alert. Did you consider an entirely new standalone?
Yeah. Well, when I burned it down, when we wrapped on that film in 2019, I didn't know if I was going to make another Hell House film. So and then COVID happened, and then 21 when we got back up, I was able to get my other film 8254 Forest Road off the ground, and so we shot that. That was just a huge project for me because it was a bigger budget than anything any remotely close to Hell House, and so we finished that in 21, and that film went into a really long post production. As I said, it's not even out yet. It's still we just wrapped post production just at the end of 23, and but in that time, in between 21 and 23, I was just getting antsy, and I wanted to work on something. And I said, like, if I'm going to do something in the world of Hell House, I don't want to do anything in the hotel again because I burned it down for a reason. I was done with the story there as it related to the hotel itself, and I just think from writing purposes, it had gone stale for me. I was finding it hard to come up with unique scares in that environment because we'd done 3 movies in there already. And I said, if I do anything in Hell House, I just want it to be its own standalone. And I think that was going to help in terms of coming up with like fun scares and new storylines. And so that's when it just came to me one time that I wanted to do something in the childhood home of Patrick Carmichael, and then explore his story more. And then I came up with the subtitle Carmichael Manor, and then I was like, well, now I got to find a manor. Kind of painted myself into a corner there. But luckily, we found a manor that I think fit the story perfectly, and it worked out very well. It's near to where I live, which is in Scranton, Pennsylvania. So it was a lot of fun to be able to film locally. Not that the Abaddon Hotel filming location is too far away from Scranton as it is, just an hour south of Scranton. But this was in like pretty much my backyard, so it was fun.
I just finished an Office watch through, so I feel like I live in the same in your backyard right there.
Yeah, so we were stocked on paper, like the best paper you can get, at all time. When you're filming in Scranton, your paper needs are going to be met. So.
And it's the Electric City, so you got that.
It's the Electric City. There you go. Yeah, you know that too. That's great. You know our little slogan.
That's awesome. Before I transition, I want to ask you one more question about the first one, Stephen. What I think makes that movie good is the camaraderie of the cast you have. Yeah. I think they all do so well. They seem so natural. They seem like genuine friends. Can you talk about the camaraderie of the cast and how it was working with them on set?
Yeah. That's a great question. I think you're right. I think a lot why people like the original so much is because of that cast, and they were amazing. But they were complete strangers, and they all auditioned. And once we picked each of them for the roles, we finally brought them together for a table read. Um, and everyone except for Mac, who I think was in LA at the time, so he wasn't able to make the table read in New York, but everyone else was. But when we all got together, the first time they were all together just hanging out was when we drove out to the Abaddon. So what I did is I put them in the same car together, and I told Tony, Jared Hacker, to make sure everyone's like playing, like if nobody's talking, make sure they're playing like road games to pass the time. Like some dumb game that you play in the car as a kid. Like just do something to get everyone talking and interacting.
Right.
But I don't think they needed anything like that, because once they got in together, they were just like immediately just like talking and joking, and they just had a fun ride out to the Abaddon. From the get go, they were just a tight knit group. And then once we started filming, they were hanging out all the time. So once the camera was down, that group would go to the hotel, put their bags down, then head right to the bar. And they would hang out at the bar that was down the road from the hotel all night long, sometimes too late. And sometimes they got a little too drunk, but they always got to work the next day, no problem. But they were hanging out in each other's rooms, and just like we're just like you would never know that, but they just seemed like they had been best friends ever before the movie. And then ever since, they're still close, and they still talk, they still hang out. I know that Gore and Danny I think they're working on their own film right now. I know a year ago they had mentioned a screenplay that had been working on together. So they still stay in contact. They're still all very close. So they had a very fun experience out there that I think will just keep them bonded together for a long time.
That's so cool to hear. I mean, you could just see the chemistry and the camaraderie amongst them. I really enjoyed the first one. We're kind of moving away from Hell House a little bit. I've heard in previous interviews you've done how big of a fan you are of The Exorcist.
Yes.
And I've also seen on your Twitter, X, whatever you call it now, that once David Gordon Green left the sequel, that would be your dream job. What is it about The Exorcist you love so much, and what are some of the ideas that you would do if you were given that sequel job? Don't spoil it all, because who knows, you might get the job.
Oh, I I haven't even thought about that, but no, I think The Exorcist, what they did on the original, it still holds up to this day. For me, it's the greatest horror film ever made, and it was just shot so beautifully. The score was so um, simple but perfect, and the acting, you could say everything about it. It's just like it's filmmaking. It's just like the best of filmmaking, and it's horror filmmaking, and it's filmmaking that they paid attention to every frame, and that's what good filmmaking is. But it was in horror, so I have that film to me is like I think what got me into horror is the thing that scared me the most when I was a little kid, and so I just whenever I make a new film, I always just want to say let's try to make this as scary as The Exorcist. And the whole point of me telling people that is knowing that we're going to fall very short. No one can ever make something as scary as The Exorcist. But if that's our goal, we set such a high goal, even when we fall so far short of it, I think we'll still make a good horror film. So you just want to set a high bar, and The Exorcist for me is the bar, is the standard, the gold standard for horror. Now, what I would do with that, I actually haven't thought about that. I was just having fun. You never want to see anybody leave a project, but I just think that would for me be such a fun project to dive into if I did something else, though. But I just been so wrapped up in so many other scripts and trying to get other things off the ground that I never put in the time of what my Exorcist movie would be. But I would love the opportunity.
Yeah.
Well,
speaking of,
we'll email some people.
So speaking of, you said you're working on other scripts. This is a personal question for me. So I'm passionate about writing scripts, wanting to write them. I've got 2 that I'm working on, another idea for a 3rd.
Yeah.
So I want to take this chance to really ask you, what advice would you give an aspiring screenwriter or someone wanting to get into directing?
So direct, I mean, both are hard to get into, but actually, no, directing's hard to get into. Writing's not hard to get into. Just download the software, start writing, and that's all you got to do. So that's writing's a lot easier to get into. And as a filmmaker, for myself, I knew that nobody knew who I was, so I knew if I wanted to make a film, I was going to have to write it myself. And just get it made somehow. So and so that's why I went low budget, because I knew I was going to have to make it on my own. But in terms of writing, I have a process that's probably a little different though. But I don't do tedious outlines of script, because I kind of feel like that's a creative juice killer. Just sitting there writing outlines, it kind of feels like homework. I like writing. What I do is I just start off with like very loose general ideas of what I'm about to write, and that's like a few scares. The main characters, obviously, in the general story, I want to get out there. I want to have like a blueprint before I start writing, but I'm not going to map out every scene and everything. I think that's just like so tedious and so just gonna. Your creativity comes when you're in the moment of writing, and you're writing the scenes and you're writing the story and things, and you don't really know how everything is going to come out. So I write a few scares that I know I want to get to, like this scare A, B, and C. I know I want to hit these scares in the screenplay. I know these are my main characters. I know this is where the story's going. I know this is generally the ending I want. And then I want to just dive right into the script. And it's kind of like a way that novelists do about it. So Stephen King writes that way. He says when he jumps into a novel, he doesn't know which character is going to live or die until he gets to the end. And sometimes I like that. When I wrote the original Hell House, I didn't know. I thought I had an idea of how everyone was going to live and who was going to die, and I thought originally I thought it was only going to be Alex that died and everyone else survived. But it just didn't go that way. When I was in the story, it just felt that was the way to go, is that everyone dies, and then we're going to tell the story how they died, going backwards. So I just kind of feel like that's just the best way, is just to start writing. And what I've told this to a few audiences I've spoken to about screenwriting, is that write that first draft, no matter how shitty that draft is, because your first draft of any script is going to be awful. And that's just how writing is. Your first draft sucks, but you have a draft and you have something to work on. You have a skeleton. And then once you take that skeleton of your first draft and you start fleshing it out more, you start changing scenes and making them better, changing characters. But once you have that general outline, it's so much easier than to flesh things out and give things depth. And once you know you have an ending, then but how can I tease that ending in the beginning? How can I set things up only to pay them off later on? And so once you see things from a bird's eye view, because you have that structure of a script, it's so much easier to add the layers, and the layers are the best part. The things that you don't think about when you on your first draft, but you thought about it on your third draft, on your fourth draft, little things that you can pepper in, and that's going to come through the rewriting process. So finish that first draft knowing that the first draft is going to suck, but because it sucks, you're going to make it better on the next drafts.
It's actually great advice, because I'll admit that first one that I started on, I went in just like, okay, I'm going to write every line of dialogue in this time. And man, you talk about hitting writer's block. It's just like, okay, where do I go from here? So I really painted myself into a corner a lot. But yeah, I appreciate that.
I mean, it's good to know. Like when I say about outlines, like some people like outlines so much, but it's good to have a good idea of where you want to be first, second, third act, without writing pages and pages of outlines. So it's good to I write a few pages of just where I generally want the story to go. I don't want to get too detailed in an outline, because I just feel that's not where the creative fun comes out of writing. It's writing an outline. I think that the creativity comes when you're in the middle of a scene with characters interacting, or writing a scare, or writing action, and then you're figuring it out as you're writing, and then the draft process is where you're going to fine tune all that and make it better. But I tell you, the first draft of Hell House sucked. It was awful, and I knew that. And I just like, there's something here. It's missing something. It's missing an angle, and I knew that because I wrote it, and I wouldn't have known that unless I just sat down, and just pushed that first terrible draft out. And you have to do that. You have to get through that. If you can't stop because you're 20 pages in, you're like, this sucks. You can't stop and just say and never go back to it. You have to push through, get to 80, 90 pages. And you're going to have garbage. Print out that garbage, go through that garbage with a red pen, and things will start clicking as you're going through and be like, oh yeah, that's garbage, but I'll change this to this, move this scene here, add something here, and it will come to you. But it's going to take time. The writing process takes a long time.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate that. So your IMDb talks about you already being in post production on a project called 825 Forest Road. I don't know if that's the one you were alluding to earlier, but it's supposed to
Yeah,
hopefully
that's what
drop
I was
soon.
mentioning earlier.
Okay,
Yeah.
what can you tell us about it?
So it's finished finally, and we finished it right before the holiday break in 23 and into 24. So what I can say about I love this story. For me, that's another thing where that took a lot of drafts to get it to where I wanted it to be. But at its bones, it's just a haunted house tale. And I think what's different about it is the way the story is told. I think it's told in a unique way because we have three main characters that are living in this house, and they all experience this haunting differently, and we follow every act is from a different character's perspective, and we see when we move into a new character's perspective in a new act, we see how all the perspectives interact with each other. So something you see in one character's perspective in Act Two, you won't make any sense to you, but then when you see it from another character's, that same scene in another character's perspective in Act Three, it makes complete sense, and it has that payoff in that way. So we see these storylines intertwine, and through this a bigger tale of this haunted house tale. So I'm very excited for it for that reason, that I think it's just a little unique way to tell what is a haunted house tale, a tale that we've seen a million times throughout history, but it's just told differently, I feel. So I'm really excited about it.
Awesome.
Steven, before we end this, I just wanted to give you big props. Before we do interviews, I always like to try and go listen to other ones, and I searched your name, and my man, you've done a lot of interviews. I think anybody who asks you, you'll do it, and I think that's awesome personally. Uh, I think it's really cool that you give your time to content creators, other podcasters. So I just wanted to give you your flowers for that, making
Okay.
time
Yeah,
for the
thanks.
people. I think that's awesome. Is there anything else you're working on? Any other irons in the fire you can tell us about? You want to shout out your social medias where the fans can follow you?
Yeah, fans. I mean, I'm on Instagram and Twitter. That's just my name. It's easy to find. But yeah, no, I'm in the middle of a few different projects. I don't know which one's going to be next. One of them being a new Hell House film too. And I've written my first draft of the fifth chapter of Hell House not too long ago, and I like where it's going. And as I said, it needs a couple of rewrites. They all do. And you talking about the rewrite process, just if I could circle back to Carmichael Manor, it's just when I knew I wanted it in the childhood home of Patrick Carmichael, I didn't really know the motivation for our main characters being in that home. So the first draft of that script was terrible idea. I had our main characters, Margot and Rebecca, opening up a bed and breakfast in this old manor, and that's why their motivation for being there in the manor was that they had bought it at a steal, and I was like, I don't really like that angle. Why they're in the manor? I want something else, and it just rewriting came to this angle. I got Margot's history. I got deeper into Margot's history and her ties to everything through the rewriting process and adding the layers there. And that was a fun writing process, the Carmichael Manor. And I'm having a lot of fun doing the same thing in the fifth film right now too. I don't know if that's what I'm going to be making next though, because I got some other projects that I'm trying to get off the ground as well. But that's pretty much what I'm working on now, and that's about it. Just right now, the writing process. It's just writing different projects, seeing which one is going to get made, what we're going to be doing next, and I don't know. But the writing part is always the fun part of it. It's the dullest part because I'm just sitting in my office all day writing and thinking, and then writing and then thinking, and that's just. And that's why I like doing podcasts because I'm like, nah, I need to talk to someone.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, before we let you go, when you get writer's block, what do you like to do to get out of writer's block? Like, you got any habits or?
Yeah, no. What I always actually find is really good for that is what I would say taking a walk or I like to run, so a jog really does that for me. When I was living in New York City, when I was on the original Hell House, uh, the long subway rides I would have in between work, back and forth, like just being on that subway, I was just in this confined space, just lost in my thoughts, and things would click on that ride. And even in the edit process, when I was having trouble editing the original Hell House, I was like, these scenes aren't connecting. How do I make this work? And on that subway drive, I'd be like, it would come to me, like I could click. And so, and I think it's the same thing, just taking the long walk, being in your own thoughts while in motion. It's that always helps. And so right now, like when I'm stuck on something, I'm not just going to sit in my chair and think about it. I'm going to go take a walk, or I'm going to go for a run, and just think on it on that run. And it might not click the first time. And never get frustrated if it doesn't click. It's sometimes it will be a week or 2 weeks before that missing thing that you're looking for clicks, but it will eventually click if you give it time. And just getting out and doing things, not forcing it. When you try to sit down and force it, it's not going to come. But if you're just out organically doing things, just running, walking, interacting with people, it's going to click. And that's how it always has come to me. Obviously, everyone's different; they have their own things, but that's how it always worked for me.
I'll tell you what
Awesome.
doesn't work for me is turning on the TV, because I'm like, ooh, that gives me an idea. Then I write something like, I just plagiarized. What am I doing? So, can't do that.
I know. This thing, I'm a fiend for Twitter. I love sports Twitter and everything. So entertaining. So like whenever I'm at my desk, I'm like, don't look at Twitter. Don't look at Twitter. Don't look at Twitter. And like, I'm looking at Twitter. I'm like, oh, the Jets have traded someone. So. Can't do that.
Oh, see, you're a Jets fan?
No, there's an excuse. I'm actually a Giants fan.
Nice.
Giants fan.
So it's another tortured fan base, So,
brother, I'm a Commanders fan, so I feel your pain.
Oh, NFC is proud. All right, yeah. What do we do? All we do is lose to the Eagles and the Cowboys all the time. Although not the Commanders. Commanders they always seem to have the Eagles numbers sometimes. You guys always give the Eagles a run for their money.
Not this season, but oh well. It's behind us.
You put in a token. Listen, Sam Howell's got a strong arm, but it's so great you guys have the second overall pick. I mean, so future's looking bright because you're going to get either Drake May or Caleb Williams. So it's going to be awesome.
I don't want to veer too far off subject, but I'd rather trade down. We need offensive linemen. We need linebackers. Let's trade down, get more picks. Let's build around Sam Howell. That's my opinion, but.
I love Sam Howell. I think he's such a coachable quarterback. He's got such a cannon of an arm. He looks like Brett Favre because he throws 100 touchdowns and 100 picks. He'll do both.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I love that about him. So I feel like he could be coached, but today's NFL, like if you think you can get a generational quarterback, if you feel like you can get an Andrew Luck or something, you gotta go for it. I kind of feel like, but if you don't, you're right. I mean, the Giants, I'm the same thing. Like, I'm just like, stick with Daniel Jones for now and get the offensive lineman. Don't go crazy on the 6th pick. But I kind of fear they will. I know this is not a sports podcast, but I'm sorry.
We got sidetracked. You're speaking my language.
Yeah. We all met on sports Twitter. So that's funny that you said that because we're all Florida State fans. And so that's how we all even met to begin with. Yeah. And see, I'm a Niners fan, so I'm just enjoying life.
Oh, you're loving it. Yeah. You guys get a value quarterback right now, someone you're paying about $50,000 to, and he's taking you to the Super Bowl. So
see, this is the last year we're going to have all this deal, so we better do it now or it's over.
You got to win now. You got to win now. Hey, but listen, I mean, like I always say, like once you give your quarterback your deal, your window's gone. But it's like, I mean, how is Mahomes there every year? Every single year.
Right.
Right. It's crazy. Brock Purdy. I love Brock Purdy. He's like, you could tell he's not a fluke. He could tell he moves around like the pocket like Brady. He's got a strong arm. It's just you could just tell he's just smart. He delivers the ball really well. So all this talk about like, oh, he's in a system. No, he's good.
Absolutely. Yeah. No doubt.
Who are you picking to win the Super Bowl?
I'm actually going with the Niners because I feel like KC, it's going to catch up with them because they played so poorly all throughout the year, such stale football, and they got in obviously, but when Mahomes hits the playoffs, he hits the playoffs and he just goes and he wins and he wins and he wins. But I feel like that's going to catch up with them at some point because they're playing above where they played in the regular season right now, and I feel like it's going to catch up with them at some point. I think it's going to happen against the Niners defense. But the Niners defense could get picked apart, like surprisingly a little bit during the playoffs too. So, That's surprising. And KC's defense, listen, KC is in the Super Bowl for one reason only, and that is that play that Chris Jones made when he pushed through that line and just to knock Buffalo Bills quarterback Josh Allen's
Josh Allen.
arm just enough that he didn't make that deep pass and where he had the guy wide open in the end zone on that drive where he knocked it a little bit. That ball came up short. If they didn't make that penetrating drive, that's a touchdown.
Yep.
And Buffalo's moving on. I don't know what happens when Buffalo moves on, but so like Casey's defense is no joke either. So I'm really interested to see. I really hope Purdy shows up to knock the naysayers down. That he can play. He'll play against a good defense and put up a good game. But I'm going with the Niners. Christian McCaffrey's just a lights out player.
Love that guy.
Phenomenal. I can't believe he's doing what he's doing. He's just such a workhorse. But it's going to be good. I mean, I don't have a team in the Super Bowl. I just want a good game. And I know as a Niners fan, you just want a blowout.
The Niners.
Get the win.
Listen, we had an embarrassment of riches in the 80s and 90s, but I have watched them the last 12 years lose 2 Super Bowls, one to the Chiefs, and I'm sick of seeing them lose the Super Bowl. I would like to see them win one now.
I know.
So,
and that heartbreaking game, I know the Giants gave you guys when we won our 2012 Super Bowl. We won in the NFC Championship game because of that fumble in the rain, the punt fumble in the rain. I was obviously over the moon happy though, but I was like, oh, that's so heartbreaking to lose it on a fumbled punt like that, Yeah.
It almost hurts as bad as being undefeated and getting left out of the college football playoffs. But anywho,
yeah, I know. So I mean, like, I listen. College isn't my game. You guys tell me, being the fans you are of that, would they have made any dent in the playoffs? Do you think?
I truly.
This is my opinion.
Right?
Go ahead.
This is my opinion. The defense was playing out of its mind. We would have had a month to prepare whoever was quarterbacking, and Alabama's quarterback played terrible. So I feel like they had a chance. I mean, that defense, I'm not, this is a weird comparison, but when the Giants beat the Patriots, I feel like y'all won because your defensive line was just playing out of its mind. And Eli made some big plays, but our defensive line was playing out of its mind those last few games of the season. So they would have given any team problems defensively. Offense, I don't know, but defense definitely would have showed up.
I mean, but that's just like, thankfully they're expanding, right? This next year the playoffs expand, so there's not going to be any of these teams just on the edge not making it.
Yeah, but
I know that doesn't help you this year. I know.
Yeah.
No.
The scary thing is though is like it's becoming like these 2 big conferences, and if you ain't in one of them conferences, pretty soon you're gonna get left behind. I feel like so.
Yeah.
Like if you're not in the Big Ten or the SEC, you're just you're getting left behind every day. So hopefully FSU makes that change. But Steven, I really appreciate you coming on the show. This was awesome. I had a blast, and we really appreciate your time, man.
There's that cutie pie showing up there.
Brian's daughter is so cute. We really appreciate your time, Steven.
Thank you guys so much. This was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me on your sports podcast. I mean your horror podcast.
For sure. Thank you so much for your time, man. This was an awesome interview.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
man, you really came to life when we started talking about sports.
I know, yeah. That's why I said, like, when you say, like, I do a lot of podcasts. I like interacting. I like talking to people about horror, and then if I can also work in some sports in there,
that's fun.
It's our wheelhouse.
We just signed a contract with a Believe network, which is a sports network first and foremost. So that's kind of works out. We're horror and sports.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So your favorite scene in horror has got to be Sleepaway Camp. Eat shit and die, Ricky. That scene,
softball
horror and sports.
Yeah, no. But I love that though. Yeah, I love that Jason mask on the background behind you.
Oh, thank you. Yes, man. You
got it behind glass or something. Is it like autographed or something? Or?
It is. It's by Derek Mears, who was Jason in 2009. Jason. So,
awesome.
I've got a lot of.
Yeah, you got some cool items back there.
He basically lives in the Smithsonian.
A lot of stuff here.
He's got a Michael Keaton Batman, cowl? Is that what you call it?
Yeah, from Batman Returns. It's in there.
That was super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a rich guy.
No, I've just been collecting stuff.
If you ever do an Indiegogo, you know who to hit up first.
Oh, please.
Yeah,
It's called making poor financial decisions. That's what I've done.
If I had a mobile computer, I'd show you. My closet's got 9 different Hell House clowns, all like in
Oh,
rows.
yes.
And
That's
so
awesome.
I got a creepy closet. My kids they hate it though. But that's where I hid the Christmas presents because I knew they wouldn't go in there. So
Oh,
Smart.
nice. Very
Hey,
nice.
don't go in there.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
All right, well, thank you again, Stephen. We appreciate it.
yeah, guys, take care.
Hey,
Thanks
if
so
you
much.
ever want to come back on the promo, just hit us up.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Any
hey,
new
look,
projects.
next time I got a movie, I'll just reach out to me again. Okay.
Please.
For sure.
Please. Absolutely.
All right, guys. Good talking
Have
to
a
you.
good
Take
one.
care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.